So what I'm about to do is a bit of a vulnerable thing for me. I've been trying to emotionally prepare myself to start playing these bits and hopefully they catch fire. These are participation bits on the show that if you want to send in something, you kind of want to send in your uh story. I want you to be able to feel comfortable enough to share it with us, and I'm gonna do this as a sort of a get to know you portion of the show for the Ray High Clack show. And this is a bit I've come up with that people can send in for. There is an email in the background, but allow me to introduce you to the Dead Dad Club.
Welcome to the Dead Daddy Club, where we cry and we laugh and we tear it up. Raise a glass, yeah, we're feeling tough. Cheers to the dads, we'll never give up.
Welcome to the Dead Dad Club, everybody. The Dead Dad Club is a place for stories. It's a place for you to share your story with people who you may not, anonymously do this. You can do however you want. But this is a space where you can share and tell your story of losing a loved one, losing somebody close to you that was like family. That's what this is truly about. Is this segment, at least, is a little bit of a communal therapy session, is how I look at it. When I was dealing with the death of my father, which I'll tell the story here in a second, I really didn't have anybody in my life that knew what that life was about. Nobody I knew that I knew about, at least, had lost a relative that they were really close with. I didn't know anybody to talk to. Luckily, I had some community resources that I was able to use when I was growing up, and kind of, because I lost my father young. My story is I lost my dad December 19th, 2009. It was a heat wave day in Cleveland, Ohio. It was unseasonably warm. Like the snow had completely melted in December 19th or December 18th, 2009. Um, and this was around the time also that the Obama era work programs for kids just out of high school or not really going to college could get into, and I got into a job with the city of Eastlake, out here in my area in Northeast Ohio. It's kind of hard. Like, this is kind of a weird thing to just air out on a podcast, but I feel like, honestly, I'd rather just be the first penguin on this and see if anybody is willing to email. You can email down here at Ray High Clack Show or Ray High Clack Show at gmail.com. I encourage you, tell your story. Know that you aren't alone when you've lost family members and all that kind of stuff, the hurt and the pain. You're definitely not alone in that area. You may feel alone. There may be a part of your life where I was there. Like, I don't mean to sound like Jesse Ventura, man, but I was there. All right. I was in the fucking mental muck. Charlie was around me, and I knew I had to be the best frog man I could. And it was rough. But anyway, the day was a weird day because it was unseasonably warm, like really fucking warm, to the point where, like, when we were doing a leaf cleanup in a park, it was all leaves. There was no snow on top of it in December in fucking Cleveland. I was a cigarette smoker at the time, so I was chain smoking cigarettes. When my a guy that worked for the city at the time decided to or came up decided just came up and was like, "Hey Ray, listen, you're not in trouble," because I had gotten into a fight with my boss at the time. I got in trouble with him because we had a little bit of a spat the day before. Um, I was just a young, dumb fucking retard. Like I was a shithead. I wasn't really like when you're in your early 20s, you're not the best person. Late teens, early 20s, you're not the person that you think you're gonna be forever. All right. I've learned that being 36 years fucking old and having the thing of just like you become different, especially if you have a life altering thing. And so anyway, getting back to the story, go back to the office. Mom and grandma are hanging out in the office. Mom's teary eyed. Grandma's trying to be rock, but she has tears. And my mom looks at me and says, words I'll never forget. Your dad had a stroke while at work over by the Menor Library. He's not, he's at the hospital and they're going to life flight him soon. And that was when my world kind of shattered. Like that's when whoever I was prior to now, I was. A new person had been completely created. The young, innocent, not really knowing much kid had kind of been destroyed and like like a beer can almost. Like that's how like when I lost my dad, it felt like somebody treated my heart like a beer can. Like it was a really horrifying, terrible feeling to like lose a parent so suddenly and abruptly. It's not fun. It's not a fun experience. It sucks. It's especially when you see them hooked up to shit and really like that was where it was just like, whoa, this is reality. Like if anybody's ever had that like horrible traumatic experience when where your brain kind of like your eyes shudder and you don't want to say it and then you start crying really bad. That was the day my dad died. Or the day my dad had a stroke. Yeah, he died the next day, which was a Saturday. My dad, if you're somebody who knew my dad and you're watching this, you know what my dad was like. And the best way to describe my dad was the happiest, drunk, angry guy you'd ever see in your life. As he got older, his anger got a little bit better. Really kind of got himself, got himself a new bag, if you will, on the way into being a good dad. He was a good dad. He wasn't a great father. He wasn't anything like that, but he was a good dad, was there for me when I needed him to be, would surprise me with shit. Big wrestling fan like myself. That's actually how I got my love of professional wrestling, was from my dad. And I'll never forget, and I'll end on this because I feel like it's kind of we should move on, and I'll tell my blue collar hell story, which is another thing, but I'll advertise it again. Make sure the email over here, if it is legible, I'm hoping it's fucking legible. I tried to make it legible. It's Ray Hyclack Show at gmail.com. Subject Dead Dad Club. If you want to share your story of losing somebody close to you, to help other people who feel like they're alone, know that they're in a community of people who we've all had people we've lost in really earth-shattering ways. And actually at the top of the show, Andrew Burge, who died after a horrible car accident, multiple surgeries. There was a nice little, I put an in memoriam for him at the beginning of the show. But my dad was a bit of an ass. My dad was the kind of guy who he always had a quip. He always had some kind of line to throw out. He was the reason I started getting into comedy. He took me to my first comedy show. But my dad went out the only way I know he probably ever wanted to go out, which was when you're in the hospital, you got the EKG meter right there on on a finger, right? And my father had his on this finger. And for a guy like my dad, who, like I said, was a bit of an ass, um, to have him go out like that with just his finger flat and saying "fuck you" to the world, is how I kind of hoped he would have gone out as you know, his son. I was kind of hoping that would be knowing who my father was. Um, you kind of want to go out giving the world the finger and saying, "Eat my ass." Put it up forward so y'all can eat. Bury me face down. He was one of those guys. Bury me face down so the world can fucking eat my asshole. That was my fucking father, and I loved him for it. Without a doubt, one of the coolest people I ever knew in my life. So let's bring this background